The massive crystalline halls of the Deathworld Alliance headquarters vibrated with barely contained energy as three of the galaxy's most feared species gathered for their monthly council meeting. Torgon's acid-scarred carapace clicked against the metal floor as he reviewed the intelligence reports from the Outer Rim territories. His species had evolved on worlds where rain could dissolve steel and the very air burned through most organic matter, making them naturally suited for the Alliance's aggressive expansion policies. Beside him, the towering figure of Drax shifted. His massive bulk, his body adapted to pressures that would crush most starships. The Deep Dweller species had conquered the ocean floors of gas giants, thriving in environments where a single mistake meant instant death. His voice rumbled through specialized vocal chambers designed to carry through liquid methane. The third member of the triumvirate flickered with internal radiation, her crystalline form absorbing and redirecting the deadly energy that powered their most advanced weapons. Neth's people had learned to feast on neutron star emissions, turning what killed others into sustenance. For 3 centuries, these species had dominated through fear and superior adaptation. No world was too hostile, no environment too deadly for the Alliance. They had built their reputation on taking what others couldn't survive and making it theirs. "The Outer Scouts have discovered something unusual," Torgon announced, his mandibles clicking with amusement. "A small blue world in the Sol system has somehow produced a dominant species despite being laughably soft by our standards." Drax's massive eyes focused on the holographic display showing Earth's surface. "These humans appear to have no natural armor, no acid resistance, no pressure adaptation. How did such fragile creatures survive long enough to develop technology?" Neth's crystalline form pulsed with curiosity. "Their planet shows signs of extensive modification. They've altered the climate, reshaped landmasses, and eliminated most competing species. Perhaps they compensate for physical weakness with cunning." The intelligence files painted a picture that both amused and intrigued the Alliance leadership. Humans stood barely 2 meters tall, had thin skin that tore easily, and required constant protection from their own planet's weather. They couldn't survive an acid rain, would die instantly under deep ocean pressure, and radiation exposure proved fatal within days, yet somehow these fragile beings had conquered their entire world. "Look at this data," Torgon gestured to streams of information flowing across the display. "They've eliminated diseases that plagued them for millennia, created machines that do their physical labor, and developed communication networks spanning their planet. Their intelligence appears to be their primary survival trait." Drax studied footage of human cities with growing interest. They work in groups constantly. Even their smallest settlements show signs of cooperation between thousands of individuals. Most species fragment when populations grow large, but these humans seem to thrive on collective effort. The Alliance had grown through absorbing useful species while eliminating threats. Their current expansion had stalled as they'd conquered most inhabitable worlds within their reach. New members were needed to maintain momentum, but finding species both useful and controllable had proven difficult. "I propose we extend an invitation," Torgon announced after reviewing the complete assessment. "These humans possess organizational skills we could utilize. Their physical weakness ensures they'll never challenge our authority, while their intelligence makes them valuable for administrative functions." Neth's form brightened with approval. They could handle the tedious coordination work that currently burdens our military leaders. Supply chain management, communication protocols, record-keeping, all tasks that require intelligence but no physical prowess. Drax's rumbling laugh shook the chamber. "Imagine their gratitude when we lift them from their single small world into the greatest alliance in galactic history. They'll serve eagerly in exchange for protection and guidance." The decision was unanimous. Earth would receive an official invitation to join the Deathworld Alliance as a junior member species, with humans assigned to support roles befitting their limited capabilities. 3 months later, the Alliance delegation arrived at Earth's moon base for formal negotiations. Ambassador Williams led the human diplomatic team, a middle-aged woman with graying hair and eyes that seemed to catalog everything around her. General Torres accompanied her, a tall man whose military bearing suggested competence despite his species' physical limitations. "We are honored by your invitation," Williams said during the opening ceremony, her words translated through the Alliance's standard communication devices. "Humanity has long admired the Deathworld Alliance's achievements and would be privileged to contribute to your continued success." Torgen's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. The human's deferential tone confirmed his assessment of their character. "Your species shows promise in organizational matters. We have prepared suitable assignments that will allow you to demonstrate your value to the Alliance." The formal treaties were signed with minimal negotiation. Humans would provide administrative support, maintain communication networks, and handle supply coordination for Alliance operations. In exchange, they would receive protection, access to Alliance technology, and the honor of membership in the galaxy's most powerful coalition. William smiled as she signed the documents, though something in her expression didn't quite match her grateful words. "We look forward to proving ourselves worthy of this opportunity. I'm confident that inviting humanity into the Alliance will produce results none of us can fully imagine." Torres remained silent throughout most of the ceremony, but his eyes never stopped moving, cataloging security arrangements, noting the positions of Alliance guards, and observing the technical specifications of their equipment with an intensity that might have concerned more paranoid species. The Alliance leadership departed Earth convinced they had gained useful servants at minimal cost. The humans' obvious excitement about joining their organization confirmed the wisdom of the decision. These fragile creatures would handle boring administrative work while the true warriors of the Alliance continued their expansion across the galaxy. Within weeks, human administrators began arriving at Alliance facilities throughout their territory. They came in small groups, carrying basic personal belongings and expressing enthusiasm about contributing to such a prestigious organization. Their requests were modest, simple quarters, access to communication networks, and permission to study Alliance procedures to better serve their new masters. The first human facilities were established on 3 worlds. On the industrial planet Forge, humans took over supply chain coordination. On the communications hub at Junction Station, they assumed responsibility for interspecies translation protocols. On the military training world of Iron Peak, they handled administrative functions for the Academy. Each group of humans worked with impressive efficiency, quickly mastering complex systems and implementing improvements that had eluded Alliance administrators for decades. Within months, operations ran more smoothly than ever before. What the Alliance failed to notice was how carefully each human observed their new environment, how thoroughly they documented security procedures, and how systematically they gathered intelligence about every aspect of Alliance operations while maintaining perfect facades of eager, grateful servants ready to prove their worth to their powerful new allies. The morning briefing aboard the Alliance flagship Worldbreaker had become something Reed looked forward to despite himself. The massive warship's command center buzzed with activity as officers from dozens species coordinated patrol routes across 3 star systems, but the chaos that once plagued such meetings had somehow vanished. Human administrative staff had quietly revolutionized the ship's operational procedures over the past 6 months. Supply requests that previously took weeks to process now cleared in days. Communication delays between species with vastly different thought patterns had been eliminated through clever translation protocols. Even the mess hall schedules, once a source of constant conflict between dietary requirements, now functioned smoothly. Reed observed the changes with growing unease as he reviewed personnel reports. The humans assigned to his ship had integrated themselves into every critical system while maintaining their facade of helpful servants. Thomas handled supply coordination with suspicious efficiency. Linda managed communications with an understanding of alien psychology that seemed impossible for such a young species. David supervised maintenance schedules while somehow learning the technical specifications of every system aboard the ship. Lieutenant Reed, Thomas approached with his usual friendly smile, carrying a data tablet filled with supply projections. "I've completed the quarterly resource analysis you requested. I think you'll find some interesting patterns in our consumption data." Reed accepted the tablet and immediately noticed something troubling. The report wasn't just thorough, it was comprehensive beyond any legitimate need. Thomas had somehow analyzed not just current supply usage, but historical patterns dating back 5 years, fuel consumption rates under various combat conditions, and detailed breakdowns of ammunition. Stores by type and yield. "This is very detailed work," Reed said carefully, watching Thomas's reaction. "Some of this information seems beyond what supply coordination would require." Thomas's expression remained perfectly innocent. "I believe in being thorough. Understanding. The complete picture helps me anticipate future needs more accurately. I noticed our plasma conduit reserves seem low for a ship this size. Should I requisition additional supplies?" The casual mention of plasma conduits sent alarms through Reed's mind. Those systems were classified military technology, yet this human administrator spoke about them as if discussing basic maintenance supplies. "I'll handle military systems personally. Focus on civilian supplies?" "Of course," Thomas replied, but Reed noticed how his eyes lingered on the tactical displays showing weapon configurations around the bridge. Similar concerns arose throughout Alliance territory as human administrators embedded themselves deeper into critical operations. On the mining world, Molten Core, human engineer Davis had transformed productivity beyond all expectations while requesting detailed surveys of the planet's defensive orbital platforms. "The mining efficiency improvements are remarkable," reported Commander Voss during the weekly security briefing. "Production has increased by 400% since the humans arrived." However, Davis has submitted numerous recommendations about structural modifications to our defensive installations. Torgan reviewed the reports with satisfaction. "Excellent. These humans exceed our expectations for useful servants." Their recommendations improve our facilities while demonstrating proper concern for Alliance security. "Sir, some of her suggestions seem unnecessarily detailed," Voss continued hesitantly. "She's identified weaknesses in our shield generators, blind spots in our sensor arrays, and structural vulnerabilities in the orbital weapons platforms. The level of analysis suggests military engineering experience rather than simple mining optimization." Torgan's mandibles clicked dismissively. "She's merely being thorough. Humans appear to possess natural curiosity about their environment. Such detailed analysis demonstrates their commitment to serving the Alliance properly." Meanwhile, in the vast archives beneath Alliance Central Command, human researcher Singh worked quietly through centuries of accumulated data. Her official assignment involved organizing historical records for better accessibility, but her actual activities extended far beyond simple filing systems. Each day, Singh systematically copied diplomatic communications, military deployment records, technological specifications, and strategic assessments. Her human-designed organization system made information retrieval incredibly efficient while creating perfect opportunities for data acquisition. The Alliance leadership praised her work while remaining oblivious to the intelligence gathering occurring under their direction. "Dr. Singh has revolutionized our archival systems," reported the chief administrator during a recent evaluation. "Researchers can now access historical data in minutes rather than days." She's also identified numerous gaps in our records and volunteered to conduct additional research to fill them. The gaps Singh claimed to find were actually strategic intelligence targets she had identified through careful analysis. Each research project gave her legitimate access to classified materials. While providing cover for copying complete databases of sensitive information, her requests seemed perfectly reasonable. Historical battle records to complete military archives, diplomatic files to improve interspecies relations data, technological development records to streamline research databases. Every request was approved enthusiastically by administrators grateful for human efficiency. The most concerning development occurred when humans requested permission to establish residential colonies on several Alliance worlds. The request seemed modest enough, small settlements to house human administrators and their families, designed to improve service quality by eliminating long-distance communication delays. "They want to live closer to their work assignments," Drac explained to the Council. "It shows admirable dedication to serving Alliance interests. Small colonies would improve efficiency while demonstrating our commitment to integrating new member species. The colonies were approved without serious consideration. Why would such physically fragile beings pose any threat? Their requests for basic defensive measures seemed reasonable given their weakness. Simple barriers against hostile wildlife, environmental protection systems, and communication networks to coordinate with Alliance authorities, all perfectly logical requirements for vulnerable colonists. Within months, human settlements appeared on 17 different worlds throughout Alliance territory. Each colony remained small and seemingly focused on supporting local Alliance operations. The humans built modest structures, maintained low profiles, and consistently exceeded expectations. For administrative support, what escaped Alliance attention was the careful site selection for each colony. Every human settlement occupied positions that provided excellent tactical advantages, high ground overlooking key installations, natural barriers that could channel approaching forces, and locations that commanded views of major transportation routes. The residential buildings, while appearing simple from the outside, incorporated structural reinforcements far beyond what civilian construction required. The communication networks, designed for coordinating administrative functions, possessed capabilities that exceeded most military systems. The environmental protection systems could be rapidly reconfigured to serve defensive purposes. Dr. Park, the human administrator assigned to coordinate inter-colony communications, submitted regular reports that praised Alliance hospitality while carefully documenting the defensive capabilities of every major installation within observation range of human settlements. "The Alliance has been very generous in welcoming our people," she reported during a routine briefing. "Our colonists are learning so much about local conditions, defensive procedures, and operational protocols. We're grateful for the opportunity to observe how such an advanced civilization maintains security across such diverse environments." Her innocent words masked systematic intelligence gathering that mapped every significant military installation, identified key vulnerabilities in Alliance defensive strategies, and cataloged the specific environmental dependencies that made each species formidable within their specialized habitats, but helpless outside them. The humans had spent 6 months observing, learning, and positioning themselves throughout Alliance territory while maintaining perfect facades of grateful servants eager to prove their worth. Every question they asked seemed motivated by dedication to serving their powerful masters better. Every improvement they implemented demonstrated their value as junior members of the galaxy's most feared coalition. The Alliance leadership remained completely unaware that their newest members had systematically penetrated every aspect of their civilization while preparing for something far more ambitious than administrative excellence. The acidic rain of Karos had been falling for 3 straight days when Colonel Harper's transport ship broke through the planet's toxic cloud cover. Through the reinforced viewports, the landscape below appeared utterly hostile, twisted metal. Trees that had evolved to conduct acid safely to their roots, pools of liquid that could dissolve most known materials, and atmospheric conditions that would kill unprotected visitors within minutes. This was exactly what Harper had hoped to find. "Sir, are you certain about this request?" asked the corrosion pilot, his natural armor gleaming with protective secretions. "No off-world species has ever survived more than a few hours on our surface. Your people seem particularly vulnerable to our environment." Harper smiled as she reviewed the atmospheric readings on her tablet. "We appreciate your concern, but humans are more adaptable than we appear. We'd like to establish a small research facility to study your remarkable ecosystem." The pilot's confusion was understandable. Even the Alliance's most hardened species avoided Koros except when absolutely necessary. The planet served as the Alliance's ultimate proving ground, a place where only the truly evolved could survive. For fragile humans to voluntarily expose themselves to such conditions seemed like elaborate suicide. The landing pad sat surrounded by structures that had been grown rather than built, their organic surfaces constantly secreting neutralizing compounds to prevent acid erosion. Harper's team of 20 humans emerged from their transport wearing environmental suits that seemed almost primitive compared to the natural protections their hosts possessed. "Your facility site has been prepared as requested," announced Commander Vex, his acidic breath visible in the toxic air. "We've installed emergency shelters and evacuation systems, though I doubt they'll provide sufficient protection if your suits fail." The humans began unloading equipment with methodical efficiency while acid rain hissed against their protective gear. Within hours, they had established a perimeter and begun constructing what appeared to be a basic research station. The corrosions, observed from a safe distance, expecting to witness the inevitable deaths of these overconfident aliens. Instead, something extraordinary happened. The humans not only survived their first night on Koros, but seemed to thrive in conditions that should have killed them. By the third day, they had somehow developed protective coatings that outperformed natural corrosion secretions. By the first week, they were growing crops in soil that dissolved steel. Dr. Peterson, the team's xenobiologist, made daily observations of local flora and fauna while conducting detailed studies of corrosion physiology. Her research revealed something that troubled the Alliance leadership more with each passing report: the fearsome adaptations that made corrosions dominant on their homeworld also made them completely dependent on it. "Fascinating," Peterson murmured as she reviewed tissue samples in her mobile laboratory. "The corrosion metabolic system requires constant acid exposure to function properly. Remove them from this environment, and their internal chemistry collapses within days." Her assistant Miller nodded while adjusting environmental controls. "They've become so specialized that they can't survive anywhere else. Their greatest strength is also their most critical weakness." The observation proved accurate when Peterson requested permission to transport a volunteer corrosion to a neutral environment for comparative studies. The volunteer, confident in his species' superiority, agreed to spend one day in a standard atmospheric chamber. Within 6 hours, he was begging to return to the acid rain that would kill most other species instantly. Similar revelations emerged from other human research sites throughout Alliance territory. On the high-pressure world of Titan's Edge, human deep-sea specialists had established an underwater research station that operated at crushing depths while slowly altering local water chemistry. The pressure-adapted inhabitants initially mocked these surface dwellers, who required mechanical protection to survive in their domain. "Watch how they struggle with simple movement," laughed Captain Zorth as he observed humans in their reinforced diving suits. "They need machines to do what our children accomplish naturally." Yet, within weeks, the humans had developed new pressure equalization techniques that allowed them to operate at depths that challenged even native species. More disturbingly, they began modifying sections of the seafloor environment, creating pockets of normal pressure that expanded daily. Lieutenant Stone submitted classified reports to her superiors, describing the terrifying implications of what she observed. The Titan's Edge natives are prisoners of their own adaptation. They literally cannot survive in normal atmospheric pressure. Their evolution has created a trap. They're powerful in their specific environment but helpless everywhere else. The pattern repeated on Neutron's heart, where radiation levels that powered the crystalline inhabitants also confined them to a narrow range of conditions. Human researchers arrived wearing protective gear and quickly established facilities in areas deemed uninhabitable even by local standards. Within months, human radiation dampening technology had created expanding zones where the crystalline beings couldn't survive. The inhabitants initially dismissed these zones as unimportant. After all, what use were areas without the energy they needed to live? They failed to understand that humans weren't trying to survive in their environment. Humans were systematically changing every environment to suit their needs. Admiral Stone's final assessment reached Earth Command through carefully encrypted channels that the Alliance never detected. Her report painted a picture that would have terrified the Alliance leadership if they had possessed the intelligence to understand it. Subject species demonstrate extreme environmental specialization that renders them vulnerable outside their adapted conditions. Corrosions require constant acid exposure and die in neutral atmospheres. Titan's edge dwellers cannot survive pressure variations and collapse in normal conditions. Neutron's hard inhabitants need specific radiation frequencies to maintain molecular cohesion and dissolve without them. The report continued with observations that would have changed galactic history if the Alliance had intercepted it. Each species has evolved incredible abilities within narrow parameters while losing all flexibility outside them. They are not apex predators, they are highly specialized survivors trapped in evolutionary dead ends. The most damning section detailed human adaptability in contrast to Alliance limitations. Human teams have successfully established permanent facilities in all tested Deathworld environments through technology, cooperation, and systematic environmental modification. Subjects remain unaware that their evolutionary strengths have become strategic vulnerabilities. Stone's recommendation was simple and terrifying. Alliance species represent specialized threats within their home environments but negligible dangers elsewhere. Their dependence on specific conditions makes them controllable through environmental manipulation. Recommend immediate progression to Phase 2 operations. Back on Karos, Harper's research team had accomplished something the Alliance thought impossible. They hadn't just survived on the Deathworld, they had begun terraforming sections of it. Acid-resistant crops now grew in specially treated soil while atmospheric processors slowly converted hostile air into breathable atmosphere. The corrosions watched in growing alarm as sections of their planet became uninhabitable to them while remaining perfectly suited for human occupation. What they failed to realize was that this transformation was intentional, systematic, and expanding daily. Colonel Harper, Commander Vex approached the human research station with barely concealed anxiety. Your atmospheric modifications are creating dead zones where our people cannot survive. Perhaps you should relocate your experiments to uninhabited regions. Harper looked up from her readings with the same friendly smile she had worn since arriving. We're just trying to make small improvements for better research conditions. I'm sure we can find ways to accommodate everyone's needs. Her words sounded reassuring, but the environmental modifications continued expanding. Each day brought new areas where humans thrived while corrosions died, and the trend showed no signs of slowing. The Alliance had invited humans as weak servants suitable only for administrative work. Instead, they had introduced a species that could remake any world to suit their requirements while systematically identifying and exploiting the environmental dependencies that made each Alliance species powerful within their specialized niches, but helpless outside them. The fatal move had been made, though the Alliance remained blind to its implications as their newest members quietly prepared to demonstrate what human adaptability really meant when applied with strategic intent. Emergency sirens wailed through the crystalline corridors of Alliance Central Command as reports flooded in from across their territory. The crisis had erupted simultaneously on 3 critical worlds, transforming what appeared to be minor human research projects into something far more threatening than anyone had imagined. Torgan's mandibles clicked rapidly as he processed intelligence from Koros. The human colony has somehow developed acid-neutralizing compounds that are spreading beyond their original research site. They're creating expanding zones where our people cannot survive while their own population grows stronger. The holographic displays showed aerial views of Karos that would have been impossible just months earlier. Green vegetation now covered areas where acid rain had fallen for millennia. Human structures dotted the landscape while corrosion settlements sat abandoned as their inhabitants fled to shrinking areas of suitable habitat. Drax's massive form trembled with rage as similar reports arrived from Titan's edge. The pressure modifications are accelerating. Human deep-sea installations are converting our ocean floors into normal atmospheric zones. Our cities are becoming uninhabitable to us while these aliens expand their territory daily. Neth's crystalline body flickered with dangerous energy as she reviewed data from Neutron's heart. The radiation dampening fields have grown beyond our worst projections. Entire continents now exist in dead zones where my people dissolve within hours. The humans call it environmental improvement. The Alliance leadership struggled to comprehend how their administrative servants had accomplished such systematic environmental warfare. The humans had seemed so helpful, so grateful for the opportunity to serve. Their requests had appeared modest and their improvements beneficial to Alliance operations. How did we miss this? Demanded Torgan as tactical assessments painted an increasingly dire picture. Our intelligence reported that these humans were physically weak and completely dependent on our protection. Commander Vex materialized in the chamber through emergency teleportation, his acid-scarred carapace bearing fresh damage from his recent escape from Karos. Sir, the situation is worse than our reports indicate. The human colonies aren't research facilities, they're military installations disguised as civilian settlements. The revelation struck the Council like a physical blow. Their newest members, the species they had dismissed as useful servants, had somehow converted peaceful research stations into fortified positions throughout Alliance territory. When we attempted to investigate their atmospheric modifications, we discovered defensive systems that rival our best military technology, Vex continued. Their research buildings are actually armored bunkers. Their communication networks are military-grade command systems. Their environmental protection equipment doubles as weapon platforms. The scope of human deception became clear as additional reports arrived from across Alliance space. Every human facility incorporated defensive capabilities that had been carefully concealed beneath facades of scientific research and administrative efficiency. The grateful servants had been soldiers in disguise. Torgan activated emergency protocols, calling all Alliance fleets to converge on human positions for immediate military action. We'll expel these deceptive creatures from our territory immediately. No species has ever successfully challenged Alliance authority. The response came faster than expected as human vessels emerged from concealment throughout the sector. What Alliance intelligence had catalogued as converted cargo ships revealed themselves as warships of unprecedented design, incorporating technologies that seemed impossible for such a young species. The Battle of the Crimson Nebula began when Alliance patrol ships attempted to blockade human colony transports. Admiral Blake's fleet, supposedly comprised of civilian vessels carrying supplies and personnel, transformed before the Alliance commander's eyes. "Impossible," whispered Captain Nord as he watched cargo containers separate to reveal weapon systems that defied classification. "These ships are using our own technology, but improved beyond recognition." The human vessels moved with coordination that suggested hive mind control while adapting their tactics to counter every Alliance strategy. They fought like no species the Alliance had ever encountered, not as individual ships seeking personal survival, but as components of a single organism dedicated to collective victory. Captain Morgan's voice broadcast across all frequencies as her flagship Terra's Wrath engaged the Alliance battle group. "You invited us because you thought we were weak. You were right individually. We are fragile creatures who need protection from our own planet's weather, but you failed to understand what makes humans truly dangerous." Her ship's weapon systems fired with precision that suggested intimate knowledge of Alliance defensive capabilities while utilizing energy signatures that Alliance sensors couldn't properly identify. The impossible had occurred. Human technology had somehow surpassed the combined knowledge of species with millennia of military experience. "We never fight alone," Morgan continued as her fleet demonstrated tactical coordination that bordered on supernatural. "We never stop adapting to new challenges. And we never accept limitations as permanent conditions that can't be overcome through intelligent application of effort." The battle revealed humanity's most terrifying characteristic: their ability to transform any apparent disadvantage into a strategic weapon. Their physical fragility made them unpredictable because they couldn't rely on individual toughness. Their environmental flexibility made them impossible to corner in specific locations. Their pack bonding created loyalty networks that transcended individual survival instincts. Alliance forces, so effective within their specialized environments, found themselves outmaneuvered by opponents who fought effectively under any conditions. Corrosion acid weapons proved useless against human adaptive armor. Pressure-based attacks from Titan's Edge natives failed against human environmental suits. Radiation weapons from Neutron's Heart inhabitants were neutralized by human energy, dampening fields. "They've studied us," realized Drac as his flagship's pressure hull began failing under human assault. "Every weapon we possess, every tactic we employ, they've prepared counters for everything." The devastating truth became clear as human forces systematically disabled Alliance defenses while broadcasting captured intelligence across open channels. Every efficiency improvement, every helpful suggestion, every administrative innovation had been part of a comprehensive intelligence gathering operation that mapped Alliance capabilities while concealing human preparations. Thomas, the friendly supply coordinator from the Worldbreaker, appeared on communication screens throughout the Alliance fleet. His pleasant smile remained unchanged as he addressed his former supervisors with words that chilled them to their cores. "We want to thank the Alliance leadership for providing such complete access to your military systems, strategic assessments, and operational procedures. Your trust in our administrative abilities allowed us to gather intelligence that would have taken decades to acquire through conventional reconnaissance." Dr. Singh's face appeared alongside his, displaying the same helpful expression she had worn while systematically copying Alliance archives. "We've learned so much about your capabilities, dependencies, and limitations. The educational opportunity has been invaluable for understanding how to most effectively neutralize threats to human expansion." The final revelation came as human colony ships began arriving from Earth in numbers that suggested massive preparation. These weren't desperate refugees seeking Alliance protection. They were invasion forces that had been planning systematic conquest since the day humans first received their invitation. Colonel Harper's image joined the others as reports continued streaming in from conquered Alliance worlds. "We appreciate the Alliance providing us with detailed surveys of your most important installations, complete environmental assessments of strategic locations, and comprehensive intelligence about defensive capabilities. Your cooperation made our mission much more efficient." The Alliance fleet found itself surrounded by enemies who knew their every weakness while possessing technology that incorporated the best features of Alliance systems with improvements that suggested decades of research and development. The trap had been perfectly executed by the species they had dismissed as harmless. Administrators. Torgan's final transmission before his flagship's destruction carried desperate confusion. "Why, we offered you membership in the most powerful Alliance in galactic history. We provided protection, technology, and status beyond anything your primitive species could have achieved alone." Morgan's reply came through speakers as Alliance vessels surrendered or died around them. "You offered us servitude disguised as partnership. You saw us as useful tools rather than equals worthy of respect. But more than that, you made the fundamental mistake that every bully makes: you assume that being dangerous and being strong are the same thing." The battle ended with complete human victory and the Alliance's most powerful fleet either destroyed or captured. The galaxy's most feared military force had been systematically dismantled by the species they had invited as grateful servants, revealing that their invitation hadn't been an opportunity for human advancement but rather humanity's declaration of war against the galaxy's greatest threat, the massive station that had served as the Deathworld Alliance's seat of power for 3 centuries now drifted silent in space as human engineering teams systematically altered its environmental controls. Nexus Station had been designed as the ultimate symbol of Alliance dominance, a structure capable of accommodating every member species, simultaneously while demonstrating their technological superiority to the galaxy. Now it was becoming their tomb. General Torres walked through corridors that had once echoed with the sounds of dozen different species conducting the business of galactic conquest. The acid-etched walls that had impressed visitors with their durability were being neutralized by human atmospheric processors. Pressure chambers that had allowed deep ocean dwellers to participate in government were being converted to normal atmospheric conditions. Radiation chambers that had powered crystalline delegates were being shielded to human safety standards. The Alliance leadership had gathered in the station's central council chamber for what would be their final meeting. Torgon's acid-scarred carapace had already begun showing signs of distress as the atmosphere slowly shifted away from the corrosive conditions his species required for survival. Drax's massive form was compressed into emergency pressure gear that barely maintained the crushing environment his body needed. Neth's crystalline structure flickered weakly as radiation levels dropped below the minimum required for her molecular cohesion. "This is impossible," gasped Torgon through failing vocal chambers. "How can your weak species survive in our most secure facility while we die in our own capital?" Torres removed her helmet to breathe the clean air that was slowly filling the chamber, demonstrating the fundamental difference between human adaptation and Alliance specialization. "Because we don't require specific environments to survive. We make any environment suitable for our needs." The revelation of humanity's true strategic plan unfolded as Torres activated holographic displays showing the scope of their systematic conquest. Every human colony had been a military beachhead. Every administrative position had been an intelligence-gathering operation. Every friendly gesture had been preparation for the complete dismantling of Alliance power. From the moment we received your invitation, we recognized it as an opportunity to eliminate the galaxy's greatest threat through infiltration rather than direct confrontation, Torres explained as the dying council members struggled to comprehend their situation. "You assumed we were seeking membership in your alliance. Actually, we were planning its complete destruction." The displays showed human forces occupying every major alliance world while their former rulers either fled to ever-shrinking habitable zones or died from environmental changes their own evolution made unavoidable. Karos was being systematically terraformed into a garden world where acid rain no longer fell. Titan's edges crushing ocean depths were being converted to normal pressure zones. Neutron's heart's deadly radiation was being dampened to levels that supported human colonization. Drax's voice rumbled through his emergency equipment as he struggled to understand the scope of human deception. "You pretended to be grateful servants while secretly preparing to destroy us. Your entire species participated in this elaborate lie." Torres shook her head with something almost resembling sympathy. "We didn't lie about being grateful. Your invitation gave us exactly what we needed: complete access to your territory, detailed intelligence about your capabilities, and proof that you viewed us as servants rather than equals. You made conquest possible by underestimating what gratitude means to humans." The truth was more complex than simple deception. Humans had been genuinely interested in joining an interstellar community and learning from advanced civilizations. The Alliance's condescending treatment and assumption that physical weakness equated to subservience had transformed potential allies into determined enemies. "Every efficiency improvement we made to your systems included backdoors that gave us control when needed," Torres continued as Nexus Station's life support systems completed their conversion to human standards. "Every helpful suggestion was reconnaissance that mapped your vulnerabilities. Every administrative position was a command post for coordinating systematic intelligence gathering." Ambassador Williams appeared through the chamber's main entrance, no longer maintaining the deferential posture she had worn during their first meeting. Her diplomatic smile had been replaced by the expression of someone delivering a final judgment. "The Deathworld Alliance made 3 critical errors," Williams announced as the failing council members listened with growing horror. "First, you assumed that surviving in harsh environments made you strong rather than simply specialized. Second, you believed that physical toughness was more important than adaptability and cooperation. Third, you treated potential allies as servants and made enemies of people who initially admired your achievements." The scope of human planning became clear as additional displays showed the systematic nature of their conquest. Every human administrator had been a trained intelligence operative. Every civilian colonist had been a military specialist. Every research facility had been a disguised fortress prepared for the eventual conversion from infiltration to occupation. Neth's crystalline form pulsed with fading energy as she struggled to speak through failing molecular bonds. Your entire species conspired against us from the beginning. How did you coordinate such deception across your entire population? Williams approached the dying Alliance leader with genuine sadness in her expression. Because that's what humans do when we're threatened. We work together. You saw our cooperation as a useful administrative trait, but it's actually our greatest weapon. When you treated us as servants instead of partners, every human became part of the same mission. The environmental conversion continued as human teams systematically eliminated the specialized conditions that each Alliance species required for survival. The irony was devastating, the very adaptations that had made these species feared throughout the galaxy were now killing them in their own capital as humans created normal living conditions. We spent months documenting your dependencies while you congratulated yourselves on our efficiency, Torres explained as Torgan's breathing became increasingly labored. Your evolution has trapped you in environmental prisons. Remove you from your specific conditions and you die. We don't just survive in different environments, we remake them entirely. The final revelation came as human colony ships arrived in massive numbers, carrying not desperate refugees but organized populations ready to begin terraforming operations on every conquered world. Earth had been preparing for systematic galactic expansion since the day they received the Alliance invitation. Dr. Singh appeared on the communication screens throughout the station, displaying technical readouts that showed the full extent of human intelligence gathering. We've copied every piece of Alliance technology, every strategic assessment, every diplomatic communication from the past 3 centuries. Your entire civilization's knowledge base now serves human expansion efforts. The databases showed improvements to Alliance technology that suggested decades of research and development. Humans hadn't just stolen alien knowledge, they had systematically improved it while identifying weaknesses that could be exploited for conquest. Colonel Harper's image joined the others as reports streamed in from every Alliance world. The terraforming operations are proceeding ahead of schedule. Koros will be fully habitable for human colonization within 6 months. Titan's edge conversions are creating landmasses where none existed before. Neutron's heart is being transformed into a garden world with Earth-normal radiation levels. The Alliance species were being systematically displaced from their own homeworlds while human populations expanded to fill the newly habitable territories. Entire civilizations that had dominated their regions for millennia were being reduced to small reservation areas, where they could survive in their required conditions. Torgan made one final attempt to understand the magnitude of his people's defeat. We offered you everything: protection, technology, status in the galaxy's most powerful alliance. Why choose war over partnership? Torres knelt beside the dying Alliance leader, her expression showing genuine regret for the necessity of their actions. Because you never offered partnership. You offered servitude with better working conditions. You saw us as useful animals rather than equals deserving. Respect. When someone invites you to join their organization as a servant, they're declaring themselves your enemy. The conversation was interrupted as human engineers completed the final environmental modifications to Nexus Station. The air was now perfectly suited for human habitation while remaining toxic to every Alliance species. The symbolism was complete. The Alliance's seat of power had become uninhabitable to its former rulers while welcoming their conquerors. Williams activated the station's galaxy-wide communication array for humanity's first official address to the wider galactic community. Her words would reshape interstellar politics and announce a new dominant force in galactic affairs. Citizens of the galaxy, this is Ambassador Williams of the Human Colonial Administration. The Deathworld Alliance has been dissolved following their systematic conquest by human forces. Their former territory is now under human control and will be administered according to human principles of cooperation and mutual benefit. The broadcast continued with announcements that sent shockwaves through every civilized world. We extend invitations to all species interested in genuine partnership rather than hierarchical domination. Unlike our predecessors, we offer equality rather than servitude to potential allies. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as the most feared military alliance in history was announced to have fallen to a species most had never heard of. The implications were staggering if humans could systematically defeat the alliance through infiltration and environmental warfare. What did that mean for every other civilization? The former alliance leadership made a fatal error in judgment. Williams concluded as her words reached billions of beings across hundreds of worlds. They assumed that surviving in harsh environments made them strong, when it actually made them vulnerable to anyone capable of changing those environments. They never realized that humans don't adapt to worlds, we remake worlds to suit our requirements. The final scene showed Alliance survivors being relocated to small reservation areas where they could live in their required environmental conditions, while human colonists began the process of transforming entire worlds into extensions of Earth. The galaxy's former masters had become protected minorities on their own planets. Torres stood over Torgan's motionless form as the last Alliance Council member succumbed to the clean air that humans found refreshing. Your people could have been our teachers and partners. Instead, you chose to be our owners. That decision didn't make you our masters, it made you our targets. The message was clear to every species monitoring human expansion. The galaxy had a new dominant force, one that conquered through adaptation rather than specialization, cooperation rather than individual strength, and systematic preparation rather than brute force intimidation. Inviting humans hadn't been the Alliance's opportunity to gain useful servants. It had been their death sentence, signed by their own arrogance and delivered by the very beings they thought they could control. The galaxy would learn what human partnership looked like, whether they chose cooperation or found themselves facing the same environmental warfare that had destroyed the most feared alliance in galactic history.